Where's Fielder? He's gone to the dogs.
Well, welcome, friends, to the Gone to the Dogs podcast. Old Steve Fielder here managed to get up to the microphone one more time and try to put together a few words of wisdom and wit and wonderfulness for you this week. That's a tall order, but hey, I'm up to it, man. How about you? Hope you're having a great day, great week, actually. This one will come to you if I get it in time to the producer on Monday. Let's see, March the 16th, I think. Let me look here just to be sure. Yeah, should be coming at you on March 16th. March 19th would have been my mother's birthday. God love her soul, born in 1922. So you do the math. It's well over 100 years old. So I come from good roots. Okay, man, I am kind of really excited today. More so than I've been in a while, because I had an experience yesterday that was just really kind of mind-blowing in a way. I knew that there was this world here in Florida of thoroughbred racehorses. You know, we normally think about Kentucky when we think of racehorses, and a good many of them, as I'm thinking racehorses, I'm thinking of thoroughbreds, of course, blood stock, as they say. And, man, a whole world opened up before my eyes this week as my cousin Morgan, who lives out in Sacramento, California. He was a Michigan boy raised up in the Detroit area. His dad, Morgan, was my first cousin, the son of my dad's oldest sister, Aunt Carolyn. And one of my favorites. I had so many good memories of visits with her. And our Uncle Elton Grady, he was also called. Those of us in the family, he had a nickname of Uncle Foggy. But anyway, they lived in St. Clair Shores, Michigan. And it was a really exciting trip for me and for my brother and my mother, who would put us, the three of us, on a train in Prince, West Virginia, and we would go to Detroit for a week to spend with Aunt Carolyn and Uncle Elton. And usually on those trips, my cousin Morgan, who was quite a bit older than me, was out doing his thing as young men would do. And but at any rate, his son, Morgan, is in the telecommunications business and has been very successful out there in California. But as a young man growing up in Michigan, his dad liked to dabble in the horses. And he would buy these inexpensive thoroughbreds in claiming races. I guess you just put in a bid for him and say, I'll pay this much. I don't know exactly how that works. But anyway, Morgan Jr., or Little Morgan, as we called him, grew up around that sort of thing. And man, did he acquire quite a knowledge about that horse business. So when he went out to California, he continued along that path and has owned partnership in several racehorses down through the years, and has had some success at it. But he's definitely been a student of that genre, I guess you would say, in the animal kingdom, and so he came out this week in a combined business and pleasure trip to visit some friends and so forth. And his wife, Lupe, was originally from Cuba, so she has family in the Miami area, and they were going to visit family and also take in the Ocala Breeders Sales Company auction or sale for 2-year-olds in training. and there's 700 horses in this sale. That's a lot of horses. But, having lived here in Florida for the last few years, and back when I was going to college down here, as you go through Ocala area, which is north, about an hour and a half northeast of me, if going up toward Gainesville, you'd pass the beautiful horse farms that were visible along the interstate. And much like when you travel through Lexington, Kentucky, and through that area, you see the beautiful rolling pastures, the board fences, the beautiful paddocks and barns and all that go along with that business. And, of course, we're talking animals, and any time that I get an opportunity to be around stock that works, I'm all about it. I love rodeo. I love to go to the races. One time I went up to Lexington to the Red Mile track and watched the trotters and pacers, those with the little sulky that trails along behind for the jockey to ride, and just had a ball with that. So I just love being around those sort of things. But like everything else in my life, it somehow is going to circle back to where, I'm going to associate what I've seen or learned with the world of dogs. Working dogs have been my life. I started out with the registries, I think about 33 years altogether. Lots of events for working dogs, night hunts, field trials, water races, beagle trials and hunts, and squirrel dog hunts, and all the things that go along with that. Aside from the show dog world, we had Lisa and Andy on a couple of weeks ago talking about the bench show dogs. But the working dogs, the ones that get out there and compete and all, are what has always intrigued me. So when Morgan told me that he was coming out this way, and of course my brother lives down here too, and he kind of gave me his schedule. He said, I'll call you, and on the last day of the sale, you need to come up, and I'll get you around and meet some of the movers and shakers in that world, and just see some wonderful horses. And I said, giddy up, let's go. So that's what little brother and I did. We went, jumped in his chariot and drove up to Ocala, where we met Morgan and Lupe there in the lobby of what I can only describe as a phenomenal facility. Of course, when we're talking about thoroughbred horse racing, we're talking about animals that are worth many times what we pay for a coon hound. But I was, as I met some of these people, and they asked me, about the dog world, which Morgan had kind of tipped them off that had been the pond that I swam in for several years. They wanted to ask a few questions about that too. And I told them I was proud of the fact that our coon hounds are, getting some recognition up to the point of seeing dogs sell in the six-figure area, and not with any great regularity, but it certainly that has happened. And that, we have futurity-type programs such as Super Stakes and those kind of things. And but I was just really not prepared to get my doors blown clear off by what I saw there in Ocala. I want to try to describe that a little bit to you and just kind of create within you some questions and some ideas about how something like this could possibly happen in our world of working dogs. I know certainly it couldn't be on such a grand scale because of the money involved. But what this facility in Ocala is owned by a company that's called the Ocala Breeders Sales Company. All right. And they put out a program. This particular sale involved 700 animals. And they're all 2-year-olds in some stage of their training. And try to paint a little picture here for you real quick so that you understand what we're talking about. First of all, this is a very beautiful facility. It would remind you as you walk in the front door of the main facility, it would be like walking into the lobby of a 5-star hotel. All the opulence that you would expect in a major hotel in a major city somewhere around the country. And of course, this is set in the rolling hills and pastures and moss-draped live oak trees of Central Florida. As you go in the lobby, and, there's, of course, some information area there, and they pointed me back to a receiving area there where my cousin and his wife were waiting for us. And after, of course, having not seen each other in quite a while, we had a great little reunion there of sorts. And then Morgan was very anxious to get us out into the action so he could show us what was going on. And right away, I noticed everybody that was there was carrying a volume that is easily 1.5 inches thick. A book, I imagine it's about 5.5 by 7 or so forth, was the program or the directory for this sale. And it's stamped on it's called the 2-year-old source for March, 2-year-olds in training. And it's, as they say, under tack. In other words, the horses are wearing bridles. And so here's basically, I guess, what happens. All around this facility, a large number of barns, stalls, so that when these horses come in, if you can imagine 700 horses on those grounds at one time, they are assigned to various barns. So these very, very nice barns for the horses are situated all around the grounds of course, as everything else they did there was in a nice pattern, the way they were laid out, adjacent to the sale barn. And I'll try to be brief here, because if you're not a horse person at all or know where I'm going with this, you're probably going to easily be bored with what I'm telling you. But just take my word for it, it was a grand deal. So what they have on the outside is an outside walking area, which is a big circle. It's paved with, as everything else in that barn and sale area, with these rubber-type bricks, I guess, that are comfortable for the horses. And each one of the horses had a handler. I guess you would call him a groom. I'm not sure. I'm not really into that world, but I don't know what those gentlemen and ladies were actually called. But the horses each horse has a sticker on its hip, and they call them their hip number. And it's not a big invasive thing, but it's probably about maybe 2 inches long oval. And on that white sticker is a number from 1, in this case, up to 800. So I guess they figure for no-shows and whatnot, and there were some. So, and everything was done in order. They started on the first day of the sale with number 1. And by the time we were there, the numbers had gotten up into the 5s and 6s and 7s. The horses are brought in, they're walked around on the outside. This is mind-blowing. And all the time I'm just wondering, man, wouldn't it be great for us to have something like this with the dogs? But anyway, they're brought into a ring and just continually walked around. And prospective buyers and spectators can stand outside the ring. There's a nice fence around it with a flat surface so that you can sit down, set your directory down and mark the horses that you might be interested in and watch them. But here's the really cool part, I thought. Stationed along this circle around where these horses are walking are monitors on a pedestal. It's like a TV monitor at an angle so you can look down on it with a touch screen. And you touch the screen and a series of numbers come up. You might have like from 1 to 50 and then from, 51 to 99 and so forth. I don't remember exactly the sequences, but there were groups of numbers. So if your horse that you were interested in was number, in our case, we were already into the 4s and 5s. And they call it the hip number on the horse. So if your hip number was 529, you'd look on that monitor and find that group of perhaps 500 to 550. Tap on that, and then you could tap on the individual number of the horse that you wanted to look at. And when you tap that, right away up comes a live video where these horses have been run out. I think seemed to me like he told me it was like 7 furlongs there at Ocala on that track. You can actually see them under full race trim with the jockey aboard, flat out breezing, they call it. Okay, so here, as you're looking at this horse walking in front of you, you look over here and you see the horse on the track. All right. Now, I'm thinking, I look back to the days at Aurora at the PKC World Championship when we used to have an auction of the coon hounds, and dogs would be brought in, and there was an auctioneer, and you could actually buy a dog right there. And I think there was a lot of, maybe there was a reserve, as was on these horses, each, as those of you who've been to auctions, there's a bottom price below which the seller will not go. They reserve the right to keep the animal and not sell it if it doesn't reach exactly that plateau, maybe $100,000, maybe $500,000, whatever. Of course, in coonhounds, we only recently got into the 6-figure realm, so there's that. But anyway, I was really, just kind of fantasizing how neat it would be to. First of all, there would have to be a great infrastructure of data information provided before we could ever do this with coonhounds. Because these, if you turn to a page in here, according to the number, and they're all in all in numerical order. While we were in I'm getting ahead of myself. What they do is they go from that area there into another walking area that's under roof. And then it's like the staging area, and then from that point, they go into the sale barn, which is no barn, believe me, a very opulent theater of sorts, comfortable seating and all, and sitting at the top of the stage is the auctioneers and all the support people and so forth. And it just goes, with that many animals, it goes very quickly. So, if this horse that you've watched out on in the walking circle and followed it maybe into the barn area, and you've taken out your 2-year-old source book, you've turned to the number and you've seen the horse that's now coming up for sale. When he comes into the ring, he's led in. It's on a platform where he's easily seen from all over the theater there. And there's video screens everywhere showing the animal and the breeze video of that horse, and the bidding starts. And I was amazed that not very long into our experience there of watching these horses, we saw one sell for $1 million. That's a million with an M, folks. Saw another one there shortly thereafter that sold for $800,000. A little bit rich for a coon hunter's blood, I would say. There were people out in the areas where there's cafeteria and booths everywhere where groups of people would be gathered around a laptop looking at these various horses. And I learned that there are, agents in this business, just like in professional sports. And I neglected to get the name, and perhaps I'm not sure that she would care one way or the other on a Coonhound podcast, but I met a close friend of my cousin who is one of the top bloodstock agents in the whole industry. Her name is Marette. She's originally from Ireland and now lives in Tennessee, in Kentucky, in the Lexington area. It was interesting. She was very familiar with the farm that I hunted on in my first UKC license event, the Pin Oak Farm there in Versailles, Kentucky, where I, lost my dog Hoss. And those of you who read my book, Gone to the Dogs: A Coon Hunter's Journey, know that, Hoss trailed a coon under 4 lanes of highway through a culvert and was lost for a couple of weeks. Which we did eventually recover him, but she was very familiar with the Pin Oak Farm and knew, its history and its ownership, and had apparently worked there as well. A very, very beautiful place that I believe now belongs to the University of Kentucky. But anyway, so I got to meet her, and she was a delightful, and I know that any business involving animals, it's got to be behind the scenes. There's probably some give and take, and maybe some narrative wells. But everybody that I met there in Ocala were just very, very friendly people, and I met one of the very top trainers in the whole business. His name escapes me right now, but maybe it'll come back to me. And I was kind of surprised to see my cousin was on first name basis with a lot of these horse. I call them moguls. Anyway, so a very, very interesting day, and I just couldn't help but think, here they, in this guide that you have on every horse, the first thing that you see is something very familiar to all of us as coon hunters, is the pedigree on the horse. First of all, they describe the horse's color. I'm looking one here. It's called a dark bay or brown filly. Fillies are the girls, colts are the boys. And then it'll have the hip number, that sticker that's on the horse's hip. And then I learned something that's pretty interesting in the horse world that we don't do in coon hounds, is they list the sire, and they're readily quoting, who the sire of the colt or filly is, but then they list the mares or the mothers. The first dam would be, of course, the mother of that filly, and then the second dam would be her mother, and then the third dam would be the great grandmother, and then down to the fourth dam. And for each one of those females only, now they'll list the sire and say, I'm reading one here. He was let's get one here. He was sired by a horse she was called Yaupon, Yaupon. The date here is 2017. I guess that's when he was born. And in bold type, they talk about the colts that particular horse had sired, and they talk about how many races that he won in the number of starts that he made. And I thought about this with coonhounds. That's one part of the data that we don't get that I've always thought would be interesting, is to know how many casts the dog participated in and how many he won, out of those. To say that a dog won X number of casts, fine, but how many did he enter to win that number? I know our ghost pup, he entered 7 casts and won 5 of them to make night champion. Now, he's had some losses since then and hasn't been really entered much because our handler and partner, Cody, had a very severe work accident. He works in trees, and as anybody that does that knows, it's very dangerous. He did have an accident. It involved breaking his nose, breaking an eye socket, breaking some ribs, and also very serious. So Ghost has been a bit on the shelf here as of late, but I think things are getting ready to pick back up for Cody, and I sure hope so. But at any rate, knowing that looked pretty good, out of 7 tries, he got 5 wins. Well, they list these foals, they call them, out of this stud horse, and a bold type statement here: his first foals are 3 years old as of 2026. So, the period of time and so forth. And so they give you this information on all of them, the amount of money they've won, where they won and so forth. Lots and lots of information. Well, I just thought it'd be great, for coon hounds to be able to know that about a dog and to have a source to go to. And they certainly do. There is a website, and I should be better prepared here. Maybe I've got it here. It's called Equibase, and they have a profile on each of these horses on there, and you can go in online and get all the stats that you need. Basically, with our stats are limited to, a dog's date of birth and where it was. But what we could do, if somebody was enterprising enough and had the finances to do so, would be to create a database, where when the sire, let's say we'd have sires in the. Well, let's back up. Let's put it this way. Okay, we got a dog here. Let's use a hypothetical. a dog that comes to mind is Rackham Willie, okay? All right, we would have Willie in that database. We'd have his date of birth. We'd know where he was born. I'm assuming there in Kentucky. We'd have a 3-generation pedigree on Willie, and then we'd have the number of titles or the amount of money that he had won. Then we'd look into his competition career. We know he's a 2-time world champion, but that would show up. It would be the number of starts that he had made. In other words, how many casts did he enter? And then we'd see how many times he placed first in the cast or second or third or fourth. So that give us a good idea, how the dog performed. And another thing that I noticed in this guide that they provide is, they're quick to tell you where this horse was born. Many of the race horses are born in Kentucky, of course. Some are California bred. Some are bred up in New York. And, of course, we were looking at a lot of Florida-bred horses, but there was many, many horses in this sale that were born in other places. Then we have horses that are born abroad. We have some Irish-bred horses. I looked at one that we kind of followed through the ring that was a German bred colt, I believe it was. But anyway, can you just envision with me how cool that would be? We could just go into a database. I get these questions all the time. Guys say, Steve, I'm thinking about breeding my female. And, of course, if they're plots, I try not to tell them to breed to our stud dog. I say, what are you going to do with the dog? How are you going to use it? Or your litter? And, what are your goals? What kind of dog are you looking for to produce? And talk about that. And, of course, then, I may slide in a few of the stats and facts and so forth about the dog we have. But it would be so good to say, well, go to the coon hound, and I'll borrow this term because I'm sure it's a patented term and all this, but this Equibase or this database online, and click on the dog or go through some of those studs and see what their win records are and so forth. Now, this, I guess, could be expanded to type and so forth. But, that's subjective. That would be probably what the owner would want you to think about his dog. It may not be exactly what the dog was. But it's part of that database then would be also in comparison to this Breeze video clip of the horse actually running, you would have the dog treeing, and it would be kind of like the Legends videos, the VHS tapes that Brian Oglesby did out in Arkansas a few years ago. So you'd be able to click on the dog there and be able to see what he looked like and what he sounded like on the tree. So I don't know, maybe some of these enterprising guys like those guys over there at Pro Sport or maybe Roger Dale's thinking PKC or one of these entrepreneurs like Zach, Josh Michaelis, I'll get it right in a minute, and Wade Grasowitz, they think about, well, maybe we ought to do something like that for the coonhound world. I think it would be great. If I was a younger man, I would probably be the guy that was out there looking for sponsorship to put something like that together so that we could have that kind of thing in our world of performance coonhounds. But it was just a great experience for me to go and to see this world. And, when you get up close with these horses like that, you realize that, well, on the screen, they all look pretty huge. And some of them are pretty big, but they are athletes. I mean, you talk about lean, mean, running machines, And I asked my cousin, I said, well, how long does it take to get one of these fire-breathing thoroughbreds, to the point where you can bring him into crowds like this and walk them around and handle them as well as they do. And he says, well, it's kind of like a 6 to 8 week process that they go through, that they start working them at. And but man, oh man, that's an interesting world. I'm sure, and it's funny. I was thinking, knowing there are people there, probably sheiks from the Arab world, and I didn't see anybody with that garb on. Maybe their agents were there. I did see certainly several people from Asia there, perhaps Japanese. I know racing is important over there. But I didn't see anybody, in an Armani suit and Gucci shoes and a couple pounds of Brill cream with their hair slicked back around there. These were mostly common people, ordinary-looking people. I sat in the sale barn, and a gentleman 2 or 3 seats over from me was bidding on some horses and bidding, well up in the 6-figure bracket. And he looked like, a guy in a flannel shirt and jeans and a ball cap that maybe just came off the farm, So you can't really stereotype the owners in horses, just like in coon hunting. You never know who's behind that dog, But at any rate, that world is out there, and it's exciting. And I applaud my cousin for finding a hobby. Of course, what he does is he has partners, and, he might buy 10% or 20%, or I heard him telling somebody there he would have bought a leg on that horse, and I imagine he's thinking about a quarter partnership, and we do have those sort of things in coon hunting, as we know, the partnerships on some of these dogs and all. But we have a partnership. I do on the 2 plot hounds that I own part of. And I own half of one and a third of the other. So I guess it's just like that. But a great, great day. And then, of course, it rained off and on, and we were thankful for the nice high roof arena there in the area that we could move around in. And it's just, if you ever get a chance to go to one of these, or you're down here in Florida and you want to partake of that, it's really there's no fee for coming in. You can just walk in. They're going to have a spring sale of 2-year-olds in training. Well, that was no. They're having another spring sale for 2-year-olds on April 14th through the 17th, and then in June they'll have 2-year-olds and horses of racing age, June 16th through 18th. And then in October, they have a yearling sale for year-old horses. And I'm not sure exactly what the limits are, but that's in October. So hats off to the Ocala Breeders Sales Company. They have a feed and supply business right next door on this spacious grounds. Just really, really a fun day. Thanks for indulging me to share that with you. But, boy, I tell you what, it really made the wheels start turning for me about what we could possibly do with coon hounds in a system such as that. But behind the scenes, these horses are vetted in so many ways, veterinarians. There's several tests for, I guess, common diseases and so forth. And if you're going to spend $1 million on a horse, you want to know that the horse is sound. And I read through the rules, and they have covered everything in the rules about. They have a term called from the drop of the hammer. That means when that auctioneer says it's sold, that's your horse. And you have various means that you can pay, or you can have your agent pay. And it has to be paid within, I think it was like 30 minutes of the drop of the hammer. You had to pay the fiddler. And then, of course, they arrange, for transportation. Once that hammer drops, that's your baby, your responsibility to get that horse wherever he needs to go. So it's a well planned out world. It's a world I gather just from looking at the crowd that virtually anybody can play if you've got partners. But man, I would want to have knowledgeable partners. And so my cousin certainly is that guy, and I'm just glad that he enjoys it so much. And I asked his wife, I said, Lupe, how do you feel about these horses? Do you enjoy them? She said, oh, I love them. And they had a picture of a newly born filly that was just born this last week. And just beautiful, beautiful. Okay, so that's, we spent 41 minutes talking about horses, but trying to think about the parallels and how we could benefit in our world of coon hounds. I think we could be a lot better educated when we go to buy that puppy. And then something else came to mind to me. As these famous handlers and well-recognized handlers were mentioned, and I was, saw my cousin interacting with some of them that he knew. Who's the best trainer? Not handler. I said handler. I think I meant trainer. So important. When you watch a Kentucky Derby, you see they bring the trainer in. This horse was trained by so-and-so. And usually, and I picked up on another term, this colt is on, it was by so-and-so, and he's well on the journey to the Kentucky Derby. And so they track these horses to know which ones are, going to be possible candidates for that Triple Crown run that we all like to watch on Derby Day and at the Belmont and the Preakness. And I've always loved that stuff. I don't know about you, but I love to watch those ponies run. But anyway, who's the best coonhound trainer in the United States? We know the guys that get out there and win. Is it Scott Engel? Is it John Strickland? Is it this Michael Ward, Dual Murphy, the names that we think about? Or is it guys like Dave Dean of history, John Monroe, Jim Merchant, certainly, Frank Giddings, Jimmy Meeks, all these names. Who is the best coonhound trainer in the country? Who can take that, I don't know what time, at what age the trainers get these horses, I'm not sure. But at what age, would we maybe take a coonhound puppy at 5-6 months old, maybe, from a reputable breeder, and then say, okay, we're going to start this pup on its road to being a coon dog, to being ultimately a world champion, or a Joy Super Hunt winner, or whatever you judge as being the pinnacle of the coonhound world. Who would that guy be, or gal? Think about it. I'd be interested in seeing your comments, and we may put a question up in coon hunting conversations and just see what the sport thinks out there. And I guess we all have our personal opinions. In this sport of horses, it's all documented. How many wins, does a guy have, and I was looking here, and I don't know if I can find it. I wish I could, because it's such a. Oh, I was looking at that on this Equa base, and this one trainer that Morgan pointed him out to me and said he's one of the top trainers in the country. And when I looked at his resume just in the last couple of years, the number of wins were just incredible. So he was a third generation. I read his bio. He was a third generation trainer, born in Barbados, and I guess later moved into the Kentucky horse scene, or maybe at Gulfstream here in Florida, I believe it was. But anyway, think about it. Who is the best coonhound trainer in the sport of competition hunting? Or perhaps the dogs are strictly going to be used for pleasure hunting, but who has that knack? That can just take one, a green pup with a good big pedigree, and produce a dog, that we're proud to take to the hunts. I think of Bruce Jansen over there in Indiana as being one that has a great rep. So think about that. We might talk about that next week after I see the post on social media. This week is World Championship Week down in Salem, Illinois. PKC moved the hunt a couple of years ago, I think, actually it's been moved several years from Aurora, Kentucky, but they also changed the date of the World Hunt from the fall to spring. So that's going on. I wish everybody out there that's hunting this week have a good time and good luck. And I guess we'll have a new world champion before I get a chance to visit with you again. But that's always an exciting time. Who wouldn't like to have a world champion coonhound? Just like all these horse people, I'm sure in the minds of each one of them, the ultimate goal would be to win that Kentucky Derby. And we're not that big, folks, but if you're a coon hunter, that world hunt title is very, very important. Well, I want to thank each of you for sitting in with me today. And as I talk about a fantasy world that I enjoyed this week particularly, as for me, we've got the American Plot Association Breed Days in Greenville, Tennessee, coming up. I think it's around the 19th or so. Probably won't make it this year. It would be a last-minute thing if I do, but I think my partner, Mark, will be there with some dogs. And I hope all those guys that go there are having a good time and enjoy it. And I know Walker Days will be coming up for you UKC Walker boys, and that's always a big thing. My buddy and good friend Randy Smith usually gets up there. I think he won it last year with his little friend female. So anyway, all of that activity, when you get out there on the highways, fellas and girls, please be safe. Late nights, don't drive when you're sleepy. Watch out for the other guy all the time. Take good care of those hounds. We got hot weather coming up. Oh, that dog needs water and he needs shade. Never forget that. Plenty of ventilation, plenty of air circulating through that dog box. If it's hot weather, figure out a way. These trucks anymore, they got crew cabs. You can put a dog crate, or you can just put a blanket, a quilt on that back seat. Let that hound ride and not have to stress himself or herself with those dangerously hot temperatures. There's been many a coonhound that passed on that didn't have to because of that the ventilation situation there in hot weather. Okay, I'll get off that stump. If you're out there in the woods, just look up in the sky, that big starry sky, and thank the Lord for living in a country that allows you to do that. And I want to mention the boys over in Virginia, I guess they won their battle over there for hunting with dogs. I don't have all the particulars right now. I'm sure my buddy Heath Hyatt on his podcast on the same W Hunting Supply platform that this one is on, we'll be talking about that. So congratulations to the hound hunters in Virginia for overcoming the opposition. But we have to be vigilant. We have to constantly be aware that any time there is a city council meeting, a county commission meeting, or a state legislative committee hearing or meeting, there is the opportunity for someone to stand up and say, let's do away with hunting with hounds. And we have to be vigilant. We have to help our buddies over there in the other state when they're going through a battle, and they'll in turn come back and help us. So, okay, that's going to wrap it up. I do want to thank Buddy Woodbury, as always, for making this podcast possible. Give him a call at DU or go to the website. It's the best way. Go to dusupply.com. Find anything you need for your dogs, for yourself, in this great sport of hunting with hounds. Also, markzepp.com, my big buddy from Indiana. Mark, quality. Let's just leave it right there. Thank you, Mark, for your sponsorship and friendship. Okay, I'm going to wrap this one up. This is the old coon hunter Steve Fielder getting on his horse, a thoroughbred, and riding off in all directions into the sunset. Ask where I am. The answer's always the same. He's gone to the dogs.